You cannot afford to miss a single moment of the next hour. Get ready to have your ideas about sexuality, love, and relationships blown wide open. It's time to get educated, entertained, and enlightened, as well as sexually empowered. You have now tuned into the Tantra Loves Sex and Intimacy Show. Now, here's your host, Tanya Diamond.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited today. Of course, most people would say that's probably a given. Right off the top, I want to say, look, you can call into this show. And I'm telling you this right now because generally I forget about this. You can call into the show. You can email the show. You can email me after the show, whatever. I'll answer your questions. And if you're going to call in, the phone number is 877-230-3062. And you can call in about anything. You can talk to my guest. You can just shoot the breeze about it. As long as it's about sex, love, intimacy, and Tantra, we're good to go. So today in the studio, I have this wonderful woman who I just said, hey, why don't you come be a guest on my show? Her name's Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Tanya. How are you?
I'm awesome. And Rebecca's actually a producer here at the radio station.
Indeed.
And how is that?
It's my favorite job that I've probably ever had.
How cool is that?
It's really cool.
You get to listen to people have these shows and...
Yes, the amount of... I feel like I've been in school for the last year, in the School of Metaphysics, which is already my field of study, so I just love it.
Yeah, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So Rebecca sat down and I said, okay, so Rebecca, you're a producer. You're like, I don't know anything about you. You're like, you're married, straight, whatever, single, what are you? And what did you say to me?
Oh, I said that I'm mostly straight and I'm married.
I said, well, this is going to be an interesting topic of conversation then. Mostly straight, because I have a whole lot to say on that subject, and I'm sure you do too. I get emails from people that say to me, I'm confused about my sexuality.
Absolutely.
And I can't go there. I can't really, I understand they're confused, but I'm not understand how that is to be confused, because in my book, I would presume if I look at a woman and I'm attracted to the woman, right? Okay. Great, I'm attracted to the woman. I look at a man, I'm attracted to a man. Great, I'm attracted to a man. If I'm not attracted to one or the other, well, that would just be how it is. What's complicated about that?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, I think. I think what's complicated is that from a very young age, we get either you're straight or you're gay. And if you're gay, there's probably a lot of problems with that in your family, in your school, society.
This goes back to that thing about programming.
It's all about programming.
Programming.
Absolutely.
Like my daughter, she says she's going to get married and she presumes it's a man. Just because that's what she sees in the media? That's what she sees in fairy tales? I don't know. Well, what do you do? So confusion isn't about, you can just break in when you have a thought too. Confusion isn't about... so it's not really about how you feel. It's about what people tell you to think.
Well, yeah, I think it's a lot about what people are telling you to think. From being a very small child, most all of us only see heterosexual relationships completely. And a lot of, I think, of the not straight relationships that we do see, they're usually portrayed in a kind of a creepy light. It's dirty. It's dirty. You can like it, but you shouldn't really. And if you like it, you shouldn't tell anybody that you like it.
Right. Yeah, well, that would cause a lot of confusion, but a lot of sex is like that, right?
Yeah, really.
Masturbation is like, okay, you like it, but you're not supposed to, don't do it. So I guess that maybe I just grew up in a way that just didn't seem to be an issue. Obviously, I was, my parents were heterosexual, and it seemed that, but I also grew up a lot in Europe.
Mm.
And so it didn't seem odd to me that somebody would like somebody of the same sex. I don't ever remember that being odd. What I do remember is wishing I was bisexual.
Really?
Well, that would just make life easy. That's like, okay, so you can pick here, you can pick here, this is all good. How bad could that be? Unfortunately, for the most part, I said for the most part, I can be very attracted to women, but I tend to have sex with men. And so you've said you're mostly heterosexual.
Well, I think what you just said is interesting. So are you saying that in Europe and being around there and growing up in there isn't the stigma to homosexuality in the media or in schools and the church?
Not that I saw, but it might be that in other countries we're okay holding hands with same sex. A lot of men kiss each other. A lot of women walk down the street arm in arm. So maybe it's not so that it's okay, but it's okay to see people of the same sex physical.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a big difference in Europe. Just with film, I've noticed that in European films, it's nothing to see two men sitting there, with their arms around each other, having a conversation.
Right.
And you can tell they're just comfortable with each other. It's not a sexual situation. It's just, and it's intimate in the sense that they're close, but not intimate in that it's leading to something that's going to get even more physical. And in American films, you just really don't see that.
No, you see the pat on the butt, which is interesting to me, of course, always, is the pat on the butt, but it's not sexual. Yeah,
I guess not.
Interesting. Well,
you're allowed to tap the behind, apparently.
So confusion has never been something that if somebody emails me or calls me and says, I'm confused, I always ask the question, do you like men? Yes. Do you like women? Yes. Would you have sex with a man? Yes. Have you sex with him? Okay, so then you're just happy. What's with the labeling?
Yeah, I grew up in the Midwest, and I never questioned my sexuality at all. I was heterosexual, very happy with that. My family seemed to be comfortable discussing sexual issues in general, so I didn't feel like there was a huge mystery around anything. I knew how babies were made. I also knew that it was best to love and respect the person that I was dating and to have love and respect back from them.
That's nice.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So I felt that I had a series of good, dating, boyfriend, girlfriend, young relationships. And then I went to college, and everything changed at that point. And I began to hang out with a much broader range of people, not only in sexuality-wise, straight or gay, but in people from other countries, people from different religious backgrounds that clearly had very different backgrounds than I did. And then I moved to Seattle. And Seattle is not like Detroit, Michigan.
No, I'm pretty sure it's not.
In many, many ways. And I went from being a really sort of typical, I would call myself a normal girl. And when I moved to Seattle, things changed. I cut my hair very short. I dyed it different colors. And I decided that I was completely, what I wanted to find out was would people still treat and perceive me the same way if my outside looked different than it did before?
See, now I know why I liked you instantly. These rebels without a cause.
I was so fascinated with would people treat me differently? So I stopped shaving my legs. I stopped wearing makeup.
You got crazy.
I went completely crazy and had, wild hair. And it was funny because I had a great job and I was respected in my field. I didn't have any problems in that area. And the weirdest thing happened, and I still remember this. It's interesting. I was riding my bicycle. It was the summertime. I had shorts on. I didn't shave my legs. I'll just say I'm Italian, okay?
Hairy legs.
Yes. And I was stopped in traffic, and this car full is two, young college guys, I assume, pulled up next to me. They looked at me, probably had seen me from behind and wanted to get a closer look. And when they looked at me and saw my hairy legs, they absolutely went off on me negatively, that it was bad, it was disgusting. Who do you think you are? How could you look like that? Don't you know women? I mean, they just really went and went and went. And I thought, this is fascinating to think that because I have stepped outside of the typical female paradigm,
American
paradigm, right?
Yeah.
That all of a sudden I was open to criticism. And then that made me realize that people who are overweight get the same treatment. People that aren't just naturally gorgeous, when they wake up in the morning, or people that aren't super fashionable, whatever. Anybody that just doesn't look like this really narrow image of what we in the States thought you were supposed to look like.
The media beauty.
Yes, that I was just open for criticism. And in that time, I also did attract a lot more women into my life. Oh, my gosh, I was getting picked up by women everywhere I went. They just assumed, I guess, that I was gay or that I was more maybe open to that.
Because of your hairy legs and your short
hairy legs, yes, because I didn't look like...
That's an interesting thing. And I mean, you're a good-looking woman. So,
well,
I mean, hairy legs or not, just wouldn't have anything to do with that. So that's a pretty interesting thing. Hairy legs. So all of a sudden then, if you're getting picked up by women, that became something on your radar.
Absolutely. And so then because I didn't have any shame around my sexuality, I didn't know that I should feel shameful about it. Nobody had told me that. Somebody forgot to tell me that you should feel shame about your feelings inside. So going about unawares of this.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, I know, really. Thank you so much. I come from a great family. I met this group of women, and most all of them were queer. And it wasn't an issue that they were or not queer. That wasn't what brought us together. And maybe that's what kept them together. But we would hang out. We had art nights. We would go out to eat together. We would go dancing together. We really enjoyed each other's company. But it definitely drew my attention to, well, if I'm attracted to women, then maybe what kind of women am I attracted to? Because I certainly knew what kind of man I was attracted to.
Right. That always brings me to the question that if a woman doesn't like men and likes other women, why a lot of the times she picks women that look like men?
Yes.
Do you understand that? Can you explain that concept?
No, I couldn't possibly explain that concept. I don't know what that is because that's who I found myself attracted to.
Was women that look like men?
Typically more masculine women that had more muscular builds, that had shorter hair, didn't wear makeup, you name it.
So you were still attracted to the masculine element.
Absolutely.
But it was okay that it appeared in a female package.
Yeah, it didn't, I said,
okay.
It didn't really...
Okay.
But then but one of my girlfriends that I talked to, we had a lot of discussions about bisexuality at that point, because I guess if you like both men and women, you're not really technically considered gay. Now, you may be by the strict, straight community or by a more religious community.
Does somebody have is there a chart? Like where you fall? I mean, because
I looked everywhere.
This chart where you fall. Like if I only like 10% of women, then I'm like, and I like most men, then I'm mostly heterosexual and only like a little bit bisexual.
Yeah.
This is all confusing.
And it really, I think it does. I think it varies between communities. I read a lot of different articles and a lot of different books on what does it mean to be bisexual, or what does it mean to be a straight woman who still has feelings for, intimate feelings or sexual feelings for women.
Strange.
It's all very interesting. I found that it was just as easy to have orgasm with a woman as a man. I didn't find that there was any big difference.
Yeah, because really, if you let go of your brain, your body can be totally happy with the physical contact.
Right. The body knows what it likes.
Yeah.
And my body knew exactly what it liked, and so it responded the same way. What I found, though, is that I didn't have, the draw was not the same.
Okay.
And it just eventually...
The chemistry.
Yeah, it just wasn't the same. It wasn't there.
Yeah. And that is interesting. I always believe, and I think you probably share this, that most of us are actually on a continuum. I mean, given the circumstances, most of us between, straight, and, not straight, that there's probably people that are more on that continuum that can slide back and forth. And I think if you're holding fast to one or the other, then there's some phobia involved more than because it's a person, right? I mean, our physical body, our mind is what's telling us this is not okay.
Yes.
Because the physical body is going to respond either way. And I remember being kissed when I was 21 by this my roommate. And she leaned over. She's a beautiful woman, had these amazing lips, kissed me. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, her lips are so soft. That just doesn't feel right. It just seemed to, it was kind of her smell. She smelled totally different. She didn't have any stickly hair, or anything. And it just was really interesting. It wasn't a bad kiss. There was nothing wrong with that. And she kind of pulled back and looked at me and said, so? And I said, well, you know what? I'm sure you could make my body incredibly happy in ways that I may not even know about.
Right.
But I don't feel the reciprocating drive here.
No compulsion.
Yeah, So that's why I say, I guess, hopelessly hetero. Love women. I think they're incredibly sexy. I do sexual healing work, so I've worked with women's bodies. And, it's a sad thing. But ultimately, that's why you're saying mostly, because you tried that. You worked in with women and decided that just didn't have the same pull to it.
Yeah.
So, chemistry. Do you think it was a smell thing?
Well, it's interesting that you said that the first thing you noticed was how soft her lips were. A woman's lips are. So I imagine mine and yours must feel equally as soft. And women tend to smell soft and nice like that. We take time. We use the shampoo conditioner. We normally have longer hair. Our deodorants smell usually nicer. They're not spicy generally,
Right.
Our perfumes, all of that. And so I don't know. I feel like it's for all people, wherever they fall on that continuum, that it really is, if your mind is not the thing that's leading you, that it really is a very natural response of what we find attractive to us, what we're compelled to be with or not. That's what I think. I think it's the same way with food. and friends. I do. I mean, there's just some foods that people, I mean, if you ask somebody what is their favorite food and listen to them describe it, if you didn't know they were talking about a food, you could easily mistake them for talking about a sexual experience.
Well, and you know that I tell people, especially men, that I can tell whether a woman likes sex or not by how she eats.
There you go.
Whether it's gusto or that cutting it up into tiny little pieces or all that,
It's separating everything.
Separating everything.
Mixing it all up.
There is a lot that goes into that. But I'm wondering how much smell how to play, because I don't know if you heard my show where I was talking about the immune system and how we're attracted to opposite immune systems. Oh. And for women, smell is a huge component in picking that type of thing. Do you like the way your husband smells?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so listen to her voice.
He laughs at me. Because I love it so much, and sometimes I just want to lay with him and just breathe him in.
Exactly.
And he's like, I've never known, nobody I've known and been with has ever enjoyed my smell so much. And I just think I don't know how you could miss how much you love it, but I think because it really falls on the unconscious radar.
You guys have great sexual chemistry, you have opposite immune systems. That's
Excellent.
what I call procreation sex chemistry. That's when you can't be in the same room without wanting to have sex, even if you're not getting along.
Wow. Well, that described our evening last night. Strange. Like she was spying on me for the show.
Was she actually there? Yeah, that is, we talked about that in one of the shows, that how we're driven by that procreation chemistry. And it means, you have super hot chemistry that way. It doesn't always mean you have an easy relationship.
Right.
Because they're two separate things.
Yes, aren't they, though?
Yeah.
Yes, communication is very different than pheromones.
Relationship navigation. So then what would you have to say to somebody that was saying, having experimented more in this arena of bisexuality, that somebody that said they were confused about their sexuality? What do you think if you hear somebody say that?
Well, what I think about confusion and sexuality is that what people are confused about is their programming. They're confused about the messages that they've received. So,
because your body's not going to be confused.
Your body is not confused.
I mean, if you see somebody and you're attracted to them.
Right. You get the tingle or you don't get the tingle, right?
It's
very easy to understand that. So I think the confusion is that we're afraid to quiet our minds down enough and to be alone with ourselves enough to really discover what it is that is going to create our own happiness. How do we create that happiness in our life? And so my suggestion for women and for men too, I suppose, though I really rarely work with men. Men rarely call people up and say, gosh, I have a problem. I really could use some help with this. But I've had lots and lots of girlfriends call up with that, that statement. And so the first thing that I think everybody should do is take off all their clothes and stand in front of the mirror by themselves and look at themselves and really just look at their body and say really great things to themselves while they're doing this. Oh, you're wonderful. Your skin is soft. I'm beautiful. This is great. Look how my hair looks when I, turn around and it flutters.
I swish my hair.
When I swish, and be silly and have fun, dance in front of the mirror. See, what do I look like when I'm just being me? And so get to a point where my relationship with my body or your relationship with your body is something that is comfortable.
Well, and I mean, that is one thing that most people do not have.
No.
I mean, this number one thing that I get, work with women especially about is body self-esteem.
And so how can you have an understanding of your sexuality if you can't stand your body?
Well, if you are not your own best lover, you're not anybody else's best lover
either. You couldn't be.
Exactly.
One of my favorite quotes, and it seems to pertain cross-contextually, is Milton Erickson. He was a foremost hypnotherapist, and he said that we can't know anything inside of or outside of ourselves that we don't know inside.
Exactly.
So it makes sense to me. And people say they're confused. I say, well, my first question is, have you ever looked in the mirror and said, I love you? Or do you know that you are okay exactly the way you are, even knowing that you're going to continue improving? Do you know that you're okay the way you are right now? And 9 times out of 10, actually more than that, almost 100% of the time, the answer is no.
Are you out of your mind?
I have never looked at myself and said, I love you. How could I do that? Yeah.
Let's not do that. I think of confusion as conflict, and you had said that, about our programming. And I look at the conflict between my body is saying something and my mind is saying that's not okay.
Yes.
Another thing that gets people is, of course, sexual abuse is pretty rampant. And what happens with sexual abuse is it can teach you to have wrong body cues. So if you were sexually abused when you were younger and your body responded, this is the hardest thing about sexual abuse that people come to me for. Most people can get the fact that they were sexually abused, right? They can come to grips with, okay, my father did this to me or my uncle did that to me, even though that's hard.
Yeah.
Harder yet is if their body responded favorably.
Yes.
And that programming of that titillation with that disgusting feeling of not feeling good about things gets integrated. And so a lot of people's confusion, I think, can come from that kind of source if there's sexual abuse in the background, where it was like the body didn't know to not respond to that. And the mind knew something was wrong.
Yes, and so
obviously,
it made that
if it was
association.
violent, that you probably won't. If you had a violent experience, that probably won't happen. But in a more longer-term seduction type of thing, when that happened, and that gets integrated, that sick, weird, disgusted, twisted feeling, along with titillation and sexual, that can lead to a lot of confusion.
Yes.
You know, when I talk to people that say, well, I'm not sure, you know, I look at a man and I get that feeling, and so it's kind of important to kind of understand where these feelings originate in our body, which is one of the things about Tantra, is learning about your body and the energy in your body and where is it residing.
Interesting.
So if sexual energy, you know, that tingle you say, where do you generally feel that tingle when you feel it?
I usually feel it in my stomach is the first place that I notice it, but it depends. If it's a really powerful tingle, I definitely feel it a bit lower.
Right.
I'm really sure.
Straight from the genitals and moving upward.
Yes.
Right? So then it can diffuse through your whole body.
Absolutely.
If you feel a clenching, a contraction around that, so you feel the titillation start and then a contraction in your stomach, that's generally a sign that there's confusion and conflict.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. Instead of a diffused, expanded feeling of woohoo, that feels great. You feel like woohoo, oh, that doesn't make me feel
good. Shouldn't be doing that. Shouldn't feel that.
Yeah, but it doesn't come from the brain. It comes from the body. So sometimes people can kind of check in with their body, which is one of the things you said about quieting your mind and being with yourself. Checking in with your body and where you're feeling things in your body is so incredibly important. We all know, we've heard the frog in the throat, you know, and that's in your throat area, and that would be like speaking truth.
Yes.
So you see a lot of people that have been abused or even have been told they should be quiet as kids. They can't speak their truth.
Yeah.
And they'll touch their throats, or they'll, they do a lot of that number.
Yes.
They're trying to clear that energy.
Now, this is actually a new concept for me, Tanja.
I know, I'm watching your face.
Yes, and the reason is that I was just listening to somebody talk about that yesterday, about the whole clearing of the throat and how that is all about speaking your truth, and that people who have a difficult time speaking their truth will do that. And I have a girlfriend who does it all the time. And she just recently had a very interesting dream, and it had a lot to do with, in the dream, speaking a truth.
Yeah, women, there's a lot of women that, you know, we were raised that way, clenching the jaw. You'll see a lot of people that have jaw problems and use their jaw really tightly. That's another way of keeping that suppression, keeping that energy suppressed. So what it is we're storing that energy in our bodies, in different places in our bodies, and it wants to come out. But the problem is that we're afraid to let it out.
Okay.
So we keep pushing it, contracting down on it. Every time you have a scary experience, you contract more, you push the energy down more, and you hang on to it instead of letting it move. You agree everything in life is flowing.
Yeah.
Nothing is static.
Nothing.
Then why is it we continue to feel confusion and pain in our bodies unless we keep putting it back there?
Right.
That's an interesting concept to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Well, and we're going to think about that for a moment while we take a little break, and we'll be back in just a moment with Rebecca and Tanja.
Hi, this is Dr. Wayne Dyer, and you're listening to Contact Radio.
Are you one of the 40 million sexless couples in the U.S.? Are you wondering why having sex leaves you feeling lonely? Are you suffering from the myths of sexual dysfunction? Do you know in your heart that there has to be more than what you're currently getting out of making love? To rid yourself of sexual ignorance, get more out of your lovemaking, and find out more about spiritual sexual connection, then you need to check out www.thetantrateacher.com to receive your free copy of the ebook called Secrets of the Tantra Teacher. Don't suffer another minute without the sexual loving and ecstatic bliss you were born to receive. Get to www.thetantrateacher.com right now. That's www.thetantrateacher.com.
This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action.
Is your sex life non-existent? Do sexual dysfunctions leave you soft? Is internet porn getting more than you are? Or are you paying more attention to porn than your partner? Have you tried talk therapy and it got you nowhere? You are not alone. You can be freed from sexual shame, guilt, and dissatisfaction. A visit to the Tantra teacher is in order. Call now and mention you heard the Tantra teacher on the radio and get a very special offer. Stop waiting for a miracle and call right now. 206-276-2735. Phone consultations or in person will get you the information you need to be successful in your love life. But you have to call now. 206-276-2735. Stop making excuses. Call the Tantra teacher. 206-276-2735.
Be part of the show. Call now at contacttalkradio.com at 1-877-230-3062.
Back, and I have Rebecca here as one of the producers here at the show, and she and I are having just a candid conversation about sex and energy and all sorts of things. And we were just talking about how we have the ability to store energy in our bodies, negative energy in our bodies. It's not. I don't believe there's positive negative energy, by the way. I know this kind of makes me a little bit of stand outed in the energy world, but I believe that energy is just energy till we make it be something in our bodies. And so consequently, we can actually hang on to this charge that we have, or this feeling that we had at one point. You know, you agree that pain, like the pain you had in your past, isn't happening right now, right?
Correct.
Right. So, but you could feel it.
Yes.
And how would you do that?
I would recall it as a memory.
Exactly. So that we're actually in charge, or in, the word accountable that everybody hates, that we that we actually can make a choice of
right.
how we feel and what we bring up and recall. And I have to tell people that it really is pretty easy to let it go. Now, I understand that flies in a lot of people's convention of believing that healing takes a long time, excuse me, and that you got to hang on to this stuff for a long time. But I think change happens in an instant. You know, we get up from laying down to standing up every morning. Boom, change.
Absolutely.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yes.
The moment you decide that you're going to go vegan and you went vegan, that was the change in an instant. It doesn't matter that you thought about it for 2 weeks or whatever, but this change happens in an instant. So there was this hotel where my ex-lover had cheated on me at this particular hotel. And so every time I started to drive near this hotel, I would get this clenching in my gut.
Yeah.
Because contraction is a pulling in, and it happens physically in our bodies too if we're just paying attention. We actually feel physical contraction in our body when things don't go very well.
Okay.
We stop breathing. Contraction. And I realized that, you know, even if I wasn't looking, if I was paying attention to something else, my body would react when I got near it. And so I decided, okay, you know, I teach this stuff all the time. You know, we just breathe. Energy follows breath. This is easy. We can clear this, no problem. Well, okay, let's put this to the test.
Yeah.
All right? So I'd approach the hotel, and I would just scan my body. And the moment I felt the contraction, I didn't let it completely contract. I pushed it out.
Yeah.
Took in a deep breath and visualized just letting that go. Nothing big, just that. And then just did it the whole way past until my stomach wasn't contracting anymore.
Right.
15 times. That's all it took.
That's amazing.
15 times. Now I don't even notice if I pass it.
Oh, right.
So, wow, what else could we do?
We can do everything.
Yeah, do you think?
Yes, absolutely.
So if you're out there and you're confused about your sexuality, which is what we were talking about, or confused about anything, you might want to check into your body. This is some of the aspects or some of the teachings of Tantra, as well as a lot of different energy work. But Tantra kind of predates, you know, it's 6,000-7,000 years ago. It's a pretty long time. A lot of the things that we see today in energy work and healing. So if you're out there and you have some conflict or some confusion, you might actually want to give that a try. And I'm right now probably 3/4 of the way through my Conscious Breath ebook and CD. So that'll be available and you can give that a whirl. But do you use breath work at all, Rebecca, in your life?
Oh, all the time. All the time. I used to have a lot of anxiety. I'm a Virgo.
Oh, no.
And yeah, tell me about it. And I really wanted everything to be perfect. And the thing was is that I didn't know what perfect was.
Well, there is, perfect.
You know, and I just knew that what wasn't okay. And I always felt like there wasn't enough time. It was always a time thing for me. Not enough time to get everything done. And if somebody else didn't tell me that it was just right or it was just perfect, then it wasn't. And then if it wasn't perfect, it was awful. I lived in this really black and white world. Everything was one or the other. And so I studied neurolinguistic programming. I studied the whole metaphysics of thought and what that meant. And somebody told me one day that all anxiety was thinking about a future event the way you don't want it to be.
Yeah.
And I remember laughing.
Say that again. Say that again slowly for everybody.
He said that all anxiety is thinking about a future event the way I didn't want it to be.
Wow.
And so it was this whole build-up I took this long class, and so this was this whole build-up. We're going to talk about anxiety on Wednesday. So Monday it would be pre-introduction. Oh, don't wait, we'll get to that on Wednesday. Tuesday, oh, we'll get to that on Wednesday. And then Wednesday, oh, we'll get to it in the afternoon. And I am so excited to learn this technique because I think this is it because I have anxiety.
Your whole life, right here.
And so he's like, okay, everybody get ready. He made this huge production out of it. And then that's what he said. He just stopped and he said, okay, now we're going to move on to whatever the next subject was. And so the whole class is laughing. And he's like, oh, did you want me to go back and talk about it some more? He's like, honestly, I don't know what else I could tell you. Think about every time you've been anxious. What were you thinking about? It's like being late, getting a bad grade. Having the dinner not turn out okay.
Thinking you might be gay or not.
Whatever it was. And I thought that is so incredible. And I think that applies for me. It applied to every area of my life thinking, wow. So if anxiety is created by thinking about things the way I don't want them to be, then the solution, therefore, must be thinking about things the way I want them to be.
Oh.
But in the Virgo world, this didn't mean translating to kind of making an exact outcome for everything, because that's what that's where I kind of go to things.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, oh, it has to be exactly like this. This is exactly how I want it. So what I learned to do was to keep things a little more open. Like, what I want is a harmonious relationship with my husband. That's for the highest good of both of us.
Right.
And that is, to me, that works.
Like an 80% harmonious relationship?
Right. It's like, no, and by harmony, I don't mean that we never argue, because that's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Then don't get into don't get married, please, let me tell you, if you don't want to argue. But what it meant is that we could have an argument and get to a place where we were able to move beyond it.
Well, has it ever occurred, and I wonder, people tend to think of spirituality and enlightenment, all this, as this, like, flat line of being.
Yeah.
And people ask me all the time, but you get angry. but I mean, I've seen you, like, going up in arms about something, and I've heard that you have arguments with your partners and this kind of stuff, and I'm like, yes. Well, think about the flat line that people are trying to achieve a lot of the time in enlightenment. It's a flat line, right?
Yeah.
What else do you know this symbolizes with a flat line?
Yes, that would be death.
Thank you very much. So I tell people, you will be perfectly dead at some point. You can then achieve perfection. My other thought about perfection, because my partners have frequently said to me, Tanya, you're just never content. It's like you're trying to achieve perfection. I'm like, no. Why would I stop at perfection? Think about that.
Yeah.
I don't actually want to stop anywhere. I actually want to keep expanding, and perfection is a limitation. Wow.
Interesting.
There's a whole new twist for you perfect people out there in the world. That perfection, you're putting a cap on experiences in your life based on what you know.
That's exactly it, because what if the perfect sexual experience today means this, achieving this level of intimacy, orgasm, happiness, satiability in that moment, but then once you get to that moment, who's to say?
Wow. Exactly.
Hey, that was really great. Can we do that again and put this in? Or can we do that again but take that out?
Right.
So, yeah.
So in the bedroom, when we're trying to achieve this one ideal that we think about, we're limiting ourselves. And what happens is people get this, I had an orgasm in 5 minutes, and you had your orgasm in 5 minutes. Well, this must mean we're having, perfect sex. Everybody's getting there. And that becomes button-pushing sex.
Yes.
Each person knows how to get the other off most effectively and efficiently, and they do that. And check that box. We're not one of the 40 million sexless couples. We're having sex.
Yeah, that's gotten me into a lot of problems. I've been called insatiable. And I don't find that to be either a bad thing or if it is a bad thing, then I must not be. I don't know, because I think, why would I want to be satiated? What's the point? So I'm done?
You realize that that's what most people are trying to do, is have sex and be done. And usually they're having sexual tension release orgasm. They're not actually having orgasms. They're having a sexual, because orgasm is all about the muscle building up, tension, boom, tension releases, you're done.
Right.
When I teach ejaculation mastery and men look at me and say, well, how do we know when we're done if I don't ejaculate?
Right. That's right.
I love that. How do we know when we're done? Well, maybe you don't have to ever be done. Why does there need to be an ending point?
Eyebrow lifting, yes.
She's lifting her eyebrows. Why does there need to be an ending point in lovemaking? There are methods of lovemaking that people believe are pretty extreme out there. And some of those have to do with methods that actually don't want the woman or the man to experience orgasm in the way that we do it right now.
Right.
And you keep that extended pleasure and extended bliss and extended interest in each other for days and weeks and months. Now, most people hearing this would say, oh my gosh, why would I do that? Because, I'm going to be anxious or tense or upset because I'm not having my release.
Yeah, or drained. I mean, that sounds like that takes a lot of energy.
Well, it gives energy.
Right.
It's the most incredible experience in lovemaking that there is. So most of us are trying to get done instead of keep going.
Right.
And in that getting done, if you think about evolution, it's an interesting thing. Evolutionary men are made to go out and plant their seed in many places.
Right.
Right? So if the man is done with planting his seed at one place, do you think he might be interested in looking at others?
Yes, always, isn't he?
Right. But it actually doesn't have to be that way. That's only because that man is using ejaculation with that person. And I'm believing that this is part of why our porn industry is so huge now. Because if we're in a monogamous relationship and the man is still seeking other places to spill his seed, what's he doing? These are all interesting concepts to batter about our brains,
aren't they?
just fascinating fodder for thought.
And like perfection, there's no end to that discovery.
Right.
Of intimacy with a partner or with yourself.
Ideal. Well, with yourself. What? You're still exploring yourself?
Is that you're not? Just me?
It's just her. She's the only one exploring herself. It is a very good point that your sexual practice with yourself should actually be an ongoing experience as well.
Yes.
Yeah. You look at I understand you were raised this way, so you don't realize how unusual that is.
No.
But that's very unusual.
Really?
Yes. Yes, especially for women, especially in the exploration of self-love, because there's masturbation and there's self-love.
Yeah.
And those are two different things. Masturbation's about getting off as quickly as you can. Self-love is about more like exploring how big your passion can be.
Right. That must be why a lot of women and people are drawn to me to talk about very intimate issues that I always find a bit surprising, and so do they. They'll come out with something and then just look at me with wide eyes and say, I've never told that to anyone. Please don't repeat it. I don't know why I told you that. Are you okay with me saying that to you? And I just, I laugh. I think, well, I thank you for sharing that with me. That's beautiful. I promise that it's mine and mine alone. Or, I won't give it to anybody else. That's, but that maybe that's why, because I don't have a judgment on that.
Well, you're open sexually. Most of us are compartmentalized. Right. And we cut off the bottom half of our body, our sexual centers, to only open it at appropriate times.
Right.
Guess what? It doesn't work that way. So being a sexual being is about being in that state of empowerment of sexuality all the time, not just quote-unquote at appropriate times. Women still suffer and work so hard with this whole thing of good girls do and they don't and that type of thing. And men, a lot of men, and I don't know if you saw that through your journeys, are scared of women that are very sexually empowered.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, what was your experience with that? Because you're just, her eyes are like,
man.
Oh yeah, let me tell you about that.
Well, I have to tell you, the only physical altercations I've ever been in my life are with men. I went traveling around the country in a van with my girlfriend. We graduated college, and we were in the South. And this was the time of my life when I had decided that I was done sort of being the girl that just always looked just right, the right outfit, the right this, the right fashion. So at this point, I did have short hair. It may or may not have been blue. I'm not sure. My basic style of dress was a T-shirt and cut-off shorts, men's cut-off Levi's, and you can't see my body, but when I wear men's clothes, I kind of look like a guy. I don't have that much sticking out anywhere, and so I went into a gas station of all, like an AM PM. And I innocently was going in to buy something to drink, and I walked by this giant man wearing a big, what are those hats called? Western hats, cowboy hat?
Yeah.
Giant man, and he looked over at me, and I was completely minding my own business, and he said out loud, which this shocked me. I mean, I can understand him thinking it.
Right.
But he said to me, "What are you doing dressed like that? You're not going to get a man looking like that." And I just looked at him and said, "Who said I'm trying to get a man?" And by that, I didn't mean that I was trying to get a female. I meant, who said I'm trying to get anything? I was there for me and my girlfriend. We were
actually
traveling.
trying to get a beer.
I'm actually trying to get a refreshment. I mean, and he looked at me. He turned red and lifted up his hand. He was so close to hitting me.
Wow.
He was so close to hitting me, and because I have no concept of having fear or shame in who I am. I just stood there and I thought, I would love to see what this county would do with this situation if the police had to be called on this. I would just love to see what they did to either of us. I had to test it. But he backed down. He didn't, raise his, he raised his hand, but he stopped. So my experience in this it's fascinating to me that, that there's just such a strict perception of who we need to be in order to be accepted, not only from others, but for ourselves to accept ourselves.
Well, and that's just getting worse. I mean, with the media. In fact, check this out. This is going to blow your mind. I'm actually going to have a whole show around this, but I was talking about this today and I had to put it out there. I said a little bit about this. There's actually a spa, and I'm going to infiltrate. I'm going on the scene. But there's a spa here in Seattle that does a service called Brighten Your Button. Now, brightening your button, it's a spa service. We have to start thinking about what our button might be. And they're not talking about our belly buttons.
Okay.
They're actually talking about anal bleaching. Now, yeah, you should see the look on her face. Like, what? Like, most of you are going, what? Yes, there's actually a spa service. Now, I'm kind of curious. First of all, how did somebody, I know it's fueled by the porn industry. Because if you look at women in porn, everybody's pink.
Yes.
It's like the prepubescent, girls.
Yes, absolutely.
Scary.
Yes.
Everybody's had their labia tucked, and there's a certain style. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, and as I'm saying this, they're going, ooh, maybe that's true. I've asked men. I've gone out and asked men now. But what I want to know is, like, are women actually grabbing a mirror and going, what does my button look like? And, oh, is that the right color? I need to call the spa. So I'm going to do that. It'll be one of the series. I'm going to be going and talking at different spas and different places. There's a couple of places here in Seattle as well that do all these vaginal tucking and labia uplifting and all of that. And so we will be exploring.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was really existed. I was watching, there's a TV series Californication. David Duchovny starred in it. Yeah. And we had watched a few episodes, and one of them, he's with this, what you would just consider media-wise, a typically gorgeous blonde.
Right.
Long, tall, curvy in all the right places. And he is clearly pleased with her, and she with him, but then she stops and says something about, do you think it's okay? Should I get an operation? Should I get it tucked? She should do something with her labia. And the look on his face, he just stopped and looked at her. Like, kind of what I took it as is I'm going to go there really no matter what.
Yeah,
I'm pleased that it's there.
That's so far from my going.
Right. And
I'm sorry.
I have to think most men, most people are in that situation. They're pretty much going to go there unless there is a serious problem.
Well, you might have noticed that with your hairy legs. I spend time shaving or not shaving, and I grew up in Europe. That's perfectly acceptable. And I've never had a man said, I'm sorry.
Never.
You have hairy legs? I can't possibly make love to you today.
Not once. It's never happened.
Exactly.
It's never happened.
Now, whether they prefer it or not is one thing.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, aesthetically speaking is a different thing. But as far as really just getting your needs met, and he in this thing, he writes a blog, and he said, what happened in America that has told and taught these women that who they are needs to be butchered up to look like a 9-year-old. He said, when did it happen? That 9-year-old
I know.
is what is the hot thing.
Thank you very much, because that is my biggest complaint. It's like, why do we want women to look like prepubescent girls, or even worse, from the back, like teenage boys? You know, when the perfect butt size is supposed to be, you're supposed to put your thumbs together, and then you can do this on, live there. You put your thumbs together with your elbows out, and then your little pinky sticking out, and whatever width that is. That's pretty small. But yeah, I know.
Uh-oh.
I mean, you're pretty small. That's not that small. So I mean, that's kind of interesting. But but I mean, obviously it's happening enough that there's actually clinics and spas available.
Yes.
To have this done. I mean, I both have a sadness about it and, of course, an intense curiosity. Do they hold up a shade indicator? You're laying on the table there getting your button brightened, and she goes, so what shade were you thinking of?
Right, is it supposed to match your skin?
That's
Is it supposed to match Angelina Jolie's?
Right.
I mean, what?
I would like to have my button just like Angelina's. What shade does she have?
Well, then, I mean, and that kind of comes full circle, because then how could somebody not be confused? I mean, how could you not be confused? Am I lovable? Maybe you're not even confused so much about your sexuality. You're wondering, just, am I myself lovable?
A lot of people are wondering that.
Right. Could somebody love me for who I am and what I look like?
Right. And we start that as little kids. Oh, get up, brush your hair. No, wear that outfit. You look pretty in this. You look handsome in that. I try to tell my daughter, you make that dress look great.
Oh, that is so wonderful.
Right? I mean, isn't that really what it's about? She makes that dress look great.
Absolutely.
The dress doesn't make her look great.
No, of course not.
Right. And so when we're picking our words with our children, it's really important.
Oh, I'm going to use that one.
Well, I'll say, some of the most suave lines from men I've heard is the same thing. Like, you make those pants look good is a much more complimentary thing than you look great today.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So it's something to consider. The clothes, the hair, all of that, that's just a dressing.
It is.
So the confusion of, am I lovable? Most people today don't feel very lovable.
No.
But then again, most people are actually not standing in a space of love themselves.
That's right.
And I've talked about how love is a self-state. Being in a state of love is really all we can be in our truth. I mean, not looking for somebody to give us something so that we can feel that way, because that'll always fail. But standing in that space of understanding that self-state, love, what does it feel like to be loved right now? Most of us can go to our hearts and feel a time when we had that great feeling of love. Better yet, if you don't have to attach it to somebody.
Yeah.
Most of the time you have to attach it to somebody.
Yeah.
But if you can walk outside and look at a sunset, or in the fall right now, which is my favorite time of year.
Me too.
All those trees out there. My daughter's school teaches that the trees are putting on their fancy party dresses right now.
Oh, they are.
They are. And it's beautiful. And if you can go out and feel love in that space, then you can exchange that with yourself or others. Love is also not about, love is all the same. Whether you love your child, your husband, your partner, your friend, it's all the same love. I want people to stop getting in this compartmentalization with love. It's just the intent you put into it.
Yeah.
If you have sexual intent, then that's different.
Right.
But love is the same.
Yeah.
And why do we have to be so scared of it? Oh, I can only love you as my friend. Sorry, you're my friend and I love you, but just as a friend.
Right.
And that gets back to the, we don't touch as much here. Because we don't touch as much, we think that people that do touch are just having sex.
Yes.
Brings us all back to the confusion of what are we really? Well, we're human beings.
Yes, we are.
Okay, first and foremost, whether you find yourself attracted to men or women, doesn't matter. If you're coming from your heart of love, what society will tell you doesn't matter either, because quite frankly, society will always find something to fault you on.
Yes.
It's your eye color, your button not being bleached enough. My God, I know I got to go explore that. Maybe I'm just anal fascinated. I don't know, but that's just such.
She has Freudian issues over here, everybody.
Freudian issues around that. And confusion, once again, is simply a conflict between what you feel and what you think. And so breathing, we talked a little bit about getting into the breath and being able to check into your body. Now, you're a pretty spiritual person, obviously.
I like to focus on that. Yes.
You like to focus on, excellent, instead of focusing on the anxiety of what might happen or what you think is worried about going to happen. So you have a great relationship with your husband.
Yes, we do. It's, I mean, yes, I guess if great means that we love each other deeply on a very wonderful spiritual level and respectful, and we argue, oh my gosh, it is just unbelievable. We have a great family counselor because we have a step family. So we have one person who knows all of us, and that we always can go to that person to talk to. It's been extremely beneficial for our family. And so he and I were in there the other day, and our counselor said the funniest thing to me. I laughed so hard. He said, well, neither of you are conflict aversive. And I just had to sit for a minute, and I was like, does that mean we like to argue? He said, no, it just means
You're not
that
afraid of it.
When it happens, you don't have this reaction where you want to stop it. You're willing to go through it into the end. So yes, I do have a great relationship with my husband.
Well, and I think that's a really important thing. I think when you get scared and you have to stop it, that means you're not actually going through to the other end. You end up cycling through the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
Men ask, why is it women always have to say the same thing over and over again? Why is it she always brings up the same thing over and over again? Well, because she doesn't feel like you've heard what she's saying. You find that to be true?
Absolutely. I mean, last night, which is why I love to focus on the spiritual aspects of life, because we had a conversation last night that for 4 years we have gone in and stopped and gone in and stopped and gone in and stopped. The same conversation, the same issue, the same argument, the same problem. And I don't know what it was last night, except that we were in a restaurant, in a bar, in a crowded, loud bar, and I said, this is it. We figured it out. From now on, all arguments, we need to go out to a bar, because it worked last night. And it was interesting because we started going into the similar paradigm, and I stopped it. I said, okay, I don't want to go here into the same thing, and I know that you don't either. And somehow we got past it.
Was it the energy of the bar, everybody being noisy, loud?
That's what I'm wondering. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Was it heated? Did you get, because you're having to express yourself loud because you have to be heard.
Right. I mean, yeah, it was heated, but I think both of us got, somehow, by the grace of God, we got to the same point where we were both exhausted from having the same argument.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
And I upped the ante. I upped it to a place where I knew he was uncomfortable going to that place, because nothing else seemed to be working. And so I took it to a place where, honestly, I was really uncomfortable taking it. But I was willing to try anything to have us be in this great relationship that we both truly believe in.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Well, a lot of us are really afraid in our relationships. We're afraid of not being loved, of not getting enough sex, of not whatever, of not. We're afraid of a lot of that. And last week on the show, I talked to Coach Catherine. We were talking about flexibility, how a lot of women are very flexible.
Yeah.
Too flexible.
Yes.
Afraid to be control freaks. Or can I say that word?
I don't know, but that...
Yeah, that word, that other word.
It's true,
that starts with a B.
That's the other. It's like the virgin and the whore, or the really nice girl, or the witchy woman.
Right.
That's all. Those are our 4 options,
Right. Yeah. And so I think that really figuring out what it is you need, and really figuring out what it is your bottom lines are really important.
Yeah.
And I think that we lose respect from our partners and ourselves when we don't stand up for that. Well, we have had been across the board here a little bit.
We did.
What'd you get out of this today?
Well, I got out of it 2 things. I was just thinking that one, and it's 2 sides of the same coin, if you will, is that one, change happens in an instant. Change happens when we allow ourselves to think about things the way we really want them to be. And change is also the thing that keeps us going all the time. I mean, in some ways, we're changing all the time, right?
Well, that is actually the hope, because trying to stay static is another area of conflict, because nothing in the universe is static.
Right.
If you try to hang on to the same, you'll be in conflict. It'll hurt really bad. Don't do it.
No.
Just change.
I won't. Yes.
I'm looking at her. She's I'm here. I'm not going to do it. We've got a couple minutes left. Is there anything you want to say to promote yourself in any way, or anything that, I mean, you've come on here graciously?
Oh, well, thank you. I don't do much self-promotion. I want to say thank you to you for being an empowered female to talk about sexuality, to bring it out and make it okay to talk about, make it not dirty, make it not something that even is all about being exploitive in some way. That I really would just love for everybody to feel comfortable in having conversations with other people about sex, to bring up conversations about sex at maybe the most unlikely times.
Thank you.
Because-
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. I haven't been thanked like that before. It's making me blush. So I am Tanya Diamond. You have been listening to Tantra, Love, Sex, and Intimacy. I have wonderful new products coming out. Monday night at the Academy of Spirit, I'm going to be videotaped for an hour talking about Tantra as a lifestyle. And that's going to be pretty interesting. And if you miss it, I've got a few spots open left for guests to come. If you want to email me at Tanja, Tanja, learningtantra.com, you can do that. Or you can just get to my website, learningtantra.com, and find out what's going on there. Lots of products, lots of workshops, great things coming up. Tantra Speed Dating, November 1st, coming up. Check it out. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week.
You have been listening to the Tantra, Love, Sex, and Intimacy Show with your host, Tanya Diamond. Don't miss next week's show at Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until then, visit our website at www.tanyadiamond.com. That's Tanja for more information on workshops and classes.